The moment I saw the gun, I knew everything about my life was about to change. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right there in the middle of my perfect suburban street. A cheap handgun, polished just enough to catch the Florida sun, pointed directly at my wife's face. The man holding it was trembling, sweat slicking his forehead, one knee bouncing like he wasn't sure whether to run or fire. He wasn't a cop, not even close. His vest said HOA police, in block letters that looked like they'd been ironed on in somebody's garage. His badge was plastic. His golf cart still hummed at the curb with Lake Haven Safety Patrol stenciled in Comic Sans on the side. Neighbors froze in their doorways, cameras lifted, mouths open. Kids' scooters lay abandoned on driveways. Sprinklers clicked to silence as if the whole neighborhood had agreed to hold its breath. And my wife, my quiet, composed, corporate wellness trainer wife, stood there like she was back in line at Starbucks, utterly unshaken by the muzzle hovering inches from her cheek. I should have called 911, should have shouted, should have run outside and done something reckless and stupid to protect her. Instead, I froze at the window, coffee seeping from a cracked mug onto my wrist, watching the kind of scene you only ever see on shaky phone footage from some other town. The only sound was the fake officer barking orders, demanding resident identification, like he thought our cul-de-sac was a military checkpoint. Aria didn't flinch. Her eyes narrowed just enough to read his stance, his grip, his pulse. I didn't understand it then, but later I'd realized she was running calculations, angles, pressure points, timing. She tilted her head, calm as a surgeon. "What legal authority do you think you have to point a loaded gun at a homeowner?" she asked him. Her voice was steady, low, almost bored. The man's jaw locked. "Citizen's arrest," he spat. "HOA Enforcement Authority." His voice cracked halfway through like even he didn't believe it. He waved the pistol for emphasis, and that was his last mistake. 3 seconds. That's all it took. Aria stepped forward, not back. Her hands moved faster than my eyes could follow. A twist, a snap, a muffled grunt. The gun was in her grip, pointed harmlessly at the sky. The magazine ejected with a click that seemed louder than thunder. The man was flat on his stomach, his arm pinned behind him, his face pressed into the sun-warmed concrete of our driveway. Our neighbor, Mrs. Gallagher, gasped so loud I heard it through the glass. 2 houses down. Old Bob Martinez, the retired mechanic who never misses a thing, muttered, "Finally, someone with sense." A chorus of whispers spread through the watching crowd. Part fear, part awe, all disbelief. Aria didn't grandstand, didn't scream. She simply crouched, field-stripped the weapon with one hand like it was a child's toy, and scattered its pieces across the manicured grass. Then she looked down at the man writhing under her knee and said, "You ever point a gun at me again? I'll make sure you never lift one." That was the moment I realized I had no idea who I was married to. Let me back up. My name's Ethan Cole. I'm 41, freelance systems designer. The kind of guy who alphabetizes his garage tools and gets irrationally angry when the recycling pickup is late. I picked Lake Haven Ridge because it was safe, predictable, the kind of neighborhood where HOA newsletters matter more than national headlines. We moved here 19 months ago for that reason. My wife, Aria, at least the version of her I thought I knew, told me she wanted a quiet community for morning jogs and book clubs. She said she was done with city chaos. I believed her. God, I was naive. That Tuesday started normal. Coffee, emails, invoices. I was halfway through designing a logo for a plumbing company when shouting outside snapped me out of flow. Shouting in Lake Haven Ridge is rarer than snow in July. I rushed to the window, and that's when my mug slipped from my hands and shattered across the keyboard. The gun. The vest, the fake authority, and my wife standing still as stone. What followed was chaos disguised as order. Within minutes, Beverly Concade, the Queen Bee HOA president, clipboard addict, professional smiler, rolled up in her pearl-white crossover with emergency lights blinking like she was FEMA arriving after a hurricane. She stepped out in her signature purple blazer, lips lacquered, hair helmet stiff. Cameras were already rolling in her hand. "Residents!" she called, her tone a sugary sermon. "Please remain calm." This was a simple training drill gone too far. Our new safety officer overstepped. She gestured at the man on the driveway, whose name I'd later learn was Brandon Hayes. Unemployed landscaper turned wannabe cop, Arya released him slowly, like a teacher letting a student up after detention. She handed him the broken pieces of his own weapon. "Next time," she said, "practice with blanks." The crowd gasped again. Beverly swooped in, all apologies and laminated documents. She flashed a letterhead that claimed Lake Haven Ridge had contracted with Lake Haven Protective Services to provide professional neighborhood security. The paper had a seal, a signature, even a watermark. To the untrained eye, it looked official. To me, the guy who designs fake but convincing branding for a living, it looked like something cooked up on a home printer at 2 a.m. "This is nonsense," Arya said flatly. Beverly ignored her, launching into a speech about recent crime reports and the need for vigilance. She cited suspicious vehicles and prowlers, though no one could recall any actual break-ins. Still, fear is easy to sell when you wear a blazer and hold a clipboard. By afternoon, the HOA app buzzed with notifications, fines, not just for us, for anyone who'd witnessed the incident. Mrs. Gallagher, $300 for encouraging disruption. Bob Martinez, $500 for supporting hostility, because he nodded when Arya disarmed Brandon. Even the mailman, $150 for failure to report suspicious activity. The absurdity was so thick it felt like satire. But the bills were real, certified letters stamped with threats of legal action if unpaid within 72 hours. That's when my wife, my calm, stretching in the driveway wife, said something that made my skin prickle. "This isn't about fines," she said. "This is reconnaissance. They're probing, testing boundaries, seeing who folds." I blinked at her. "Reconnaissance? Arya, this is HOA drama. Power trips and petty fines. Not warfare?" She cut in, her eyes locked on mine. "You'd be surprised how often they look the same." I should have pressed. Should have demanded answers about why my wife used words like reconnaissance while making tea in our kitchen. But before I could, my phone lit up with texts from neighbors. "Emergency HOA meeting tonight. Attendance mandatory." What unfolded at that meeting cracked the facade of Lake Haven Ridge like a dropped porcelain plate. Beverly stood at the front, navy blazer this time. PowerPoint slides projected onto a wrinkled bedsheet she called a visual aid. Charts of crime spikes in nearby towns. Blurry photos of hooded figures, testimonials from experts with no credentials. She painted Arya as the aggressor, twisting the story until half the room believed my wife had ambushed a poor security guard just trying to keep us safe. Fear spread fast. Seniors clutched their purses. Parents whispered about safety patrols. And Beverly rode the wave like a professional surfer, proposing expanded powers for HOA security, random ID checks, patrol authority, even the right to detain non-compliant residents. That's when I stood. My hands shook, but I'd brought my own evidence. Screenshots of the HOA budget, $6,000 a month funneled to LPS Ops. A quick search showed no business registration, no licensing, no insurance. Nothing. It didn't exist. I explained how Brandon's sudden lifestyle upgrade, a brand new truck, 3 guns purchased in the last month, lined up perfectly with the payments. I explained how similar fake security firms had popped up in 3 other Florida HOAs, each ending with families forced out of their homes. Whispers erupted. Faces shifted. Even some of Beverly's staunchest allies glanced at each other. She laughed, called my research harassment, and accused me of destabilizing the community. But the cracks had formed. People were asking questions she couldn't answer. When I got home, Arya was at the kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through databases I didn't know existed. Background checks, court filings, defense contractor directories. She turned the screen toward me. "Jennifer Smith," she said, tapping Beverly's maiden name. Divorce records, debts, connections to shell companies. Notes in Beverly's own handwriting about military families in 3 states. Targeted and pressured until they sold their homes below market value. At the bottom of the page, circled in red ink, was my wife's name. Arya Cole, targeted 6 months ago. Detailed notes about her jogging schedule, her routes, even her unusual situational awareness. I stared at it, my throat dry. "Why are you on her list?" Arya's eyes hardened. "Because she knows what I am." "What are you?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Not then. But the way she closed the laptop, her hand hovering over it like a soldier over a holster, told me the truth was heavier than I could yet carry. Sleep doesn't come easy when you discover your wife's name circled in red ink on a hit list hidden inside your HOA president's files. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Aria's breathing stayed steady beside me. Not the restless toss of someone rattled, not the sighs of stress. Controlled, patterned, like a soldier conserving oxygen before a dive. At 2:11 a.m., the faint hum of a car engine stopped outside our house. I slid out of bed, heart pounding, and peeked through the blinds. Headlights off. A dark sedan idled at the curb. A figure stepped out, raised a phone, and snapped 3 photos of our driveway. Another shadow crossed our mailbox, scribbling something onto a clipboard. My skin prickled. Before I could whisper her name, Aria was already standing in the doorway. Barefoot, silent, watching the same scene. She didn't look surprised. She looked like someone confirming weather they'd predicted. She touched my arm once, grounding me. "Stay here," she murmured and padded down the hall. I expected her to grab her phone. Instead, she pulled open a drawer in the laundry room I never thought twice about. Out came a compact black case. Inside, a flashlight with an infrared filter, a digital recorder, zip ties, and something small and metallic I didn't recognize. She clipped the recorder to her shirt and moved to the back door with the efficiency of someone who had rehearsed this 100 times. I pressed against the window as she slipped outside. She didn't charge. She didn't scream. She flanked the mailbox from the shadows, timing her steps with the pulse of the sprinkler cycle. The figure didn't see her until she was right behind him. She touched his wrist, twisted gently, and the clipboard clattered to the pavement. He yelped like a teenager caught sneaking in past curfew. "Name," she demanded softly. I was told to check the name," she repeated, twisting just enough to steal the strength from his knees. "Caleb," he gasped. "Caleb Morris, Jennifer. She pays us." In less than 10 seconds, she had him zip-tied to the lamppost, trembling under the buzz of moths. His clipboard listed every house on the block, with notes scribbled under some. Ours had 3 words: high threat level. Aria photographed the list, bagged the page, then released him with a warning so quiet I almost didn't catch it. "Tell her you saw nothing. If you lie, I'll know." The man nodded so fast his neck cracked, then stumbled into the sedan. It pulled away without headlights, vanishing like a bad dream. She came back inside, peeled off the recorder, and set it on the counter. "Recon team," she muttered. "She's mapping loyalties." "Aria," I whispered, "how do you know how to do that?" "Any of it? Who are you?" Her gaze locked on mine, steady and unflinching. "Someone who should have told you sooner." The morning brought Beverly's next move. Flyers taped to every mailbox, glossy as campaign ads. "Keep Lake Haven safe," the headline screamed, above a photo of Aria mid-disarm, cropped to hide the gun aimed at her face. The caption called her a violent agitator. Beneath it, HOA safety meeting tonight, mandatory attendance. Neighbors whispered in driveways, clutching the flyers like verdicts. Some avoided eye contact. Others looked at us with pity or fear or both. My phone buzzed nonstop with group chat messages. What happened? Is Aria dangerous? Do you think Beverly's right? By noon, the HOA app announced new fines. $1,000 for interference with community safety protocols, $500 for unauthorized handling of security equipment, $250 for intimidation of HOA staff. Each fine was addressed to me personally. It was financial warfare designed to break us before we could fight back. Aria brewed coffee, unbothered. She spread the flyers across the table like puzzle pieces, circling print irregularities with a red pen. "Cheap press," she muttered. "Same font Beverly used on the phony security contracts." "She's cutting corners." "Aria," I said, gripping the counter. "You're talking like this is a military op. This is an HOA. What the hell is going on?" She finally sat, hands clasped. "Do you want the short version or the long one?" "The truth," I said. Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed sharp. I served. Delta Force. 8 years. Afghanistan, Syria, places I can't tell you. I retired in 2019, or at least that's the word they use. Officially, I teach fitness. Unofficially, I monitor domestic threats, infiltration, networks that use ordinary communities like this one to cover extraordinary crimes. My stomach dropped. The pieces clicked. Her reflexes, her awareness, the secret drawer of gear. My wife wasn't just calm under pressure. She was built for it. Beverly isn't just greedy, Arya continued. She's connected. These fake security companies, they're shells. They funnel money, gather intelligence, and pressure military families until they leave. Then properties get flipped to buyers tied to, let's just say, interests not friendly to this country. I was assigned to watch Lake Haven Ridge because it showed signs of compromise. I didn't tell you because cover matters, but now it's blown. I slumped into a chair, head spinning. So we're targets? Because of you? Her expression didn't change. Because of them. They made me a target long before you knew. The doorbell rang before I could respond. On the porch, Brandon, the wannabe cop she'd disarmed, bruises still blooming along his arm. He held a manila envelope, eyes downcast. For you, he mumbled, thrusting it forward. Arya took it without flinching. Inside, surveillance photos. Our house, our yard, Arya jogging, me at my desk through the window. Scrawled notes along the margins. Departure times, routes, vulnerabilities. One photo had crosshairs drawn over Arya's face. Rage boiled in me. This is stalking! This is criminal. We're going to the police right now. Arya shook her head. Not yet. We need to know how deep this goes. She tapped the photos. These weren't taken by Brandon. Look at the angle. Telephoto lens. Professional. He's just the errand boy. Brandon's lip trembled. I didn't want this. She pays cash. Says it's for the good of the neighborhood. Please don't. Arya cut him off. Who else works for her? He swallowed. 2 guys. Cal and Rick. They're watching houses. Recording routines. She told us military families are destabilizers. That they need to be pushed out. His eyes darted to me. I didn't know she'd go after your wife. I swear. Arya stepped closer, her presence making him shrink. Listen carefully. If you want to walk away from this alive, you stop working for her now. And you don't say a word about what you've told us. Understand? He nodded frantically, backed down the steps, and jogged to his truck. Tires squealed as he fled. The silence he left behind was louder than any gunshot. That night's safety meeting was standing room only. Every resident crammed into the clubhouse, buzzing with tension. Beverly stood at the front, purple blazer pristine, papers fanned like cards she knew would win. Behind her, a projector displayed the flyer photo of Arya disarming Brandon, cropped to paint her as the aggressor. Neighbors, Beverly began, voice syrupy with faux concern. We've all seen the danger. Unstable individuals undermining our safety. Aggression toward our security staff. Refusal to comply with basic identification protocols. We cannot allow radicals to endanger our homes. Half the room murmured in agreement. The other half shifted uncomfortably. Fear is easy to sell. Truth is harder. I stood, pulse hammering. That photo's a lie. She disarmed a man who pointed a loaded gun at her. A real crime! And the company Beverly hired, Lake Haven Protective Services, it doesn't exist. No registration, no insurance, no license, nothing, but it's been paid $6,000 a month of your dues. Gasps rippled. Beverly laughed, brittle. Conspiracy theories. This is harassment. Arya stepped forward then, calm as ever. She set the surveillance photos on the podium, sliding them into the projector beam. Crosshairs over her face. Notes on our routines. Gasps turned to shouts. Who took these? A neighbor demanded. Beverly's smile faltered. Fabrications. Obviously planted. Then why is your handwriting on the notes? Arya cut in. She held up a photo annotated in the same neat looping script as the HOA newsletters. The room erupted. Voices clashed, chairs scraped, phones flashed. Beverly's mask cracked. For the first time, she looked cornered. Arya leaned into the mic, voice low but sharp. This isn't about fines. This isn't about safety. This is about control. And the people you trusted have been selling you out. The clubhouse dissolved into chaos. Some shouted for audits. Others stormed out. Beverly banged her clipboard like a gavel, shrieking about order, but no one listened. As we left, whispers followed us into the night. Some supportive, some fearful, but all electric with realization. The facade was crumbling. Back home, Aria opened her laptop again, typing into that gray console I still didn't understand. She paused, fingers hovering over the keys, and looked at me. "Ethan, from here on out, you need to decide how deep you're willing to go. This isn't HOA drama anymore. It's war." The night after the HOA meeting, our neighborhood didn't sleep. Lights flicked on behind blinds, cars crawled slowly down cul-de-sacs, and every motion sensor seemed to trip twice as often as usual. Lake Haven Ridge, the place where the loudest noise used to be sprinklers hissing at dawn, had turned into a pressure cooker. I sat at my desk, documents spread across every inch, trying to piece together what Beverly had built. HOA budgets, bank statements, photos, screenshots, receipts piled like ammunition. But my hands kept shaking, not from fear, but from the memory of those crosshairs scrawled over my wife's face. Aria moved through the house differently now. Not nervous, not frantic, strategic. Every curtain drawn, every lock double-checked, every light bulb replaced with one she called hard spectrum. She timed our dog's walk to the minute, varied routes, tested the gate latches twice before bed. Watching her was like watching a soldier prepare a battlefield while pretending it was still just a suburban home. Around midnight, a knock rattled the door. Not the polite tap of a neighbor. 3 heavy bangs that echoed like gunshots. I froze. Aria didn't. She pulled a small device from her pocket, pressed it to the door, and mouthed, "Recorder." I cracked it open an inch, chain still on. On the porch stood 2 men in matching vests, clipboards in hand. One held a flashlight trained straight at my eyes. "HOA Safety Patrol," he barked. "We're conducting a wellness check." "It's midnight," I said, heart hammering. "Suspicious activity reported," the other replied. "We need to verify compliance." Aria stepped up beside me, her voice calm but cutting. "You have no legal authority to enter this home. Leave." The first man smirked. "Non-compliance noted. That'll be another fine." They scribbled something on their clipboards and sauntered back toward a waiting golf cart. The glow of their taillights felt more like a threat than a departure. As soon as they were gone, Aria pulled me aside. "They're escalating. Tonight it's intimidation. Next time it'll be property tampering. She's pushing for a reaction." "She?" I asked, though we both knew. "Beverly," Aria confirmed. "She's setting the stage. She'll make us look unstable until enough neighbors believe it." The next morning proved her right. Flyers appeared again, this time stapled to every telephone pole. My face stared back in grainy black and white, captured mid-shout from the meeting. Above it, "Community agitator." Below, "Has threatened residents. Has disrupted safety operations. Report any suspicious activity from this household immediately." I wanted to rip them all down, but Aria stopped me. "Let them hang. The more desperate she looks, the better." Still, I couldn't shake the sting of neighbors crossing the street to avoid me. Mrs. Gallagher, who used to bring over banana bread, wouldn't meet my eye. Even Bob Martinez, who'd muttered his approval when Aria disarmed Brandon, kept his distance. Fear is a powerful glue, and Beverly was applying it with both hands. That evening, Aria set her laptop on the kitchen table again. The gray console glowed. Lines of text scrolled too fast for me to follow. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Correlating data," she said simply. "Pulling public records. Cross-referencing Beverly's shell companies with property transfers in other neighborhoods." I leaned closer. "And what are you finding?" She stopped typing, turned the screen toward me. Dozens of addresses filled the list, stretching across 3 counties. Each one matched to a military family. Each marked sold within the last 2 years, often far below market value. My stomach twisted. "She's been running this scam everywhere," Aria nodded grimly. "And she's accelerating. Our pushback is forcing her hand." Before I could reply, headlights swept across our window. A vehicle idled at the curb again. I tensed, ready to storm outside, but Aria grabbed my wrist. "Not yet. Watch." Through the blinds, we saw a man in a hoodie approach our mailbox. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket, slipped it inside, and walked off. No golf cart this time, no vest. Just silent delivery. I rushed out as the car pulled away. The envelope inside was addressed to me in block letters. Inside, a single sheet of paper. "You can't protect her forever." The words burned into me like acid. My fists shook, rage boiling up. But Arya took the letter gently from my hands, slid it into a bag, and labeled it with the same calm precision she'd used for every piece of evidence. "This isn't a threat," she said. "It's a tell." They're scared enough to play psychological games. That means we're close. Close to what? I wanted to scream, but her eyes held mine, steady and unbreakable. "Trust me," she whispered. The emergency HOA meeting 2 nights later was the boiling point. The clubhouse buzzed with tension as Beverly strutted to the front, clipboard in hand, flanked by her so-called safety patrol. She smiled that plastic smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "Neighbors," she began, voice sugary, "our community is under attack. Agitators in our midst are spreading lies, undermining safety and endangering us all. But we will not be intimidated. Tonight we vote on permanent security measures, patrol authority, mandatory resident IDs, and fines for non-compliance." Cheers erupted from one side of the room. Fear-filled nods from another, but a ripple of doubt ran through the crowd too. People whispered, shifted, glanced at me and Arya. I stood slowly, heart pounding. "You've stolen over $50,000 from this community," I said. Gasps broke the air. "Your fake company doesn't exist. Your security patrol is unlicensed. And now you're threatening residents who dare question you. That's not safety. That's extortion." Beverly's face reddened. "Lies!" she shrieked. Fabrications from a man desperate to hide his wife's violent past. The room erupted in shouts. Some turned toward me, eyes wide. Others looked at Arya, confused, searching. Beverly seized the moment. "Ask yourself," she said, her voice rising over the chaos. "How did she disarm a man with a gun so easily? How does she know surveillance tactics? Who is she, really?" Gasps turned into murmurs. Doubt flickered. And then Arya stepped forward. She didn't shout. She didn't wave papers. She simply spoke, clear and steady. "You want to know who I am?" she said. "I'm someone who doesn't tolerate bullies. Someone who protects people when cowards hide behind fake badges and clipboards. I've dealt with worse than you, Beverly, and I will not let you turn this community into your personal kingdom." The silence that followed was electric. Some neighbors straightened in their chairs like they'd just remembered their own spines. Others shifted uneasily, fear still clouding their eyes. Beverly slammed her clipboard down. "You'll regret this," she hissed. But in that moment, the tide had shifted. Not fully, not yet, but enough. Enough to make Beverly look less like a leader and more like what she truly was. Desperate. That night, as we walked home under streetlights that suddenly felt like spotlights, I whispered, "You just painted a target on us." Arya slipped her hand into mine. "No," she said softly. "She painted it months ago. Tonight we made it visible. And when a predator feels cornered, that's when they make mistakes." She squeezed my hand once, eyes scanning every shadow. And that's when I stopped playing defense. The morning after the meeting felt like a hangover, even though no one had been drinking. You could feel it in the air, heavy, brittle, like the silence before a thunderstorm. Mailboxes stood like sentinels, each one still stapled with Beverly's flyers that called me an agitator. No one ripped them down, but plenty of neighbors slowed as they walked by, eyes darting between the paper and our house like they were calculating risk. I tried to start work emails. Invoices, the usual, but my hands couldn't stay steady on the keyboard. Every time I blinked, I saw that moment in the clubhouse, Arya standing tall, defiant, calling Beverly a bully to her face. It had lit something in half the crowd, but the other half, they'd looked at her like she was a stranger. Maybe that's because she was. Arya didn't bother with pretending anymore. She moved through the house like she was on deployment, not in suburbia. Curtains checked twice, windows tested, notes scribbled on her pad about angles and sight lines. She adjusted our router, installed something she called a scrambler, and explained it like she was describing a grocery list. "Blocks unauthorized access to our devices. Beverly's people are already inside our data," I laughed nervously. "You're saying our HOA president hacked my Gmail?" She didn't laugh. "I'm saying the people behind her did." Before I could argue, the doorbell rang. I jumped. Arya didn't. She opened it to find a uniformed delivery man holding a cardboard box. "Package for Ethan Cole," he said, smiling too wide. No company logo on the truck, no scanner in his hand. My stomach clenched. Arya accepted the box, closed the door, and set it on the tile. She didn't touch it. Didn't even lean close. "Get me gloves," she said. Inside wasn't what I expected. Not a bomb, not drugs, worse in its own way. Paper, dozens of printed photos. Our backyard. Our kitchen window. Arya jogging, me at my desk, even us sleeping through a half-open blind. Each one labeled with times and dates. The last photo showed Arya in her workout gear, red marker scrawled across the page, priority target. I felt sick. My mouth tasted like copper. "They're watching us sleep," I whispered. Arya flipped through each photo calmly, cataloging them like evidence. "Professional surveillance," she murmured. "Telephoto, high ground, probably from the old water tower outside the subdivision." She slid the photos into a bag and wrote the time across the label. "We can use this." "How the hell can you stay calm?" I snapped. "They're hunting you." Her eyes met mine, steady. "Because this isn't the first time." I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't want the answer. By noon, the neighborhood group chat was on fire. Posts accusing us of destabilizing the community. Comments about outsiders bringing trouble. Screenshots spread like wildfire, photos of Arya cropped to make her look violent. Documents claiming we owed thousands in unpaid fines. The worst part? Some neighbors believed it. Fear had rotted their trust, and Beverly was serving it daily like bread and wine. At 3:00 p.m., a sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Deputy Gaines stepped out, hat low against the sun. My pulse spiked. Finally, I thought, someone sane. But when he walked inside, his expression was heavier than I'd ever seen. "I've got bad news," he said, closing the door behind him. "A restraining order's been filed against you, Ethan, signed by a judge this morning. Beverly claims you've been harassing HOA officials, threatening residents, and interfering with community operations." The words hit like bricks. "That's insane. She's the one harassing us." Gaines sighed. "I know. But the paperwork is airtight. Photos, statements, even recordings. Whoever built this file knew exactly what to include. Until it's challenged, it's law." I felt the floor tilt. "So what does it mean?" "It means," he said gently, "you can't attend HOA meetings, contact Beverly, or discuss community security with other residents. If you do, she can have you arrested." Arya's jaw tightened, but her voice was calm. "Which means she's silenced him." Classic tactic. Remove opposition before escalation. I turned to her. "You sound like you expected this." "Because I did," she said. It's the next move in her playbook. That night, I wasn't allowed to step foot in the clubhouse, but Arya went alone. She told me later how it unfolded. Beverly grandstanding about new safety ordinances, presenting herself as the savior of Lake Haven Ridge. She unveiled proposals that sounded less like community rules and more like martial law. Mandatory schedules submitted to the HOA, visitors needing written approval, wellness checks allowed at any hour. "She's building a surveillance state," Arya said when she got home, peeling off her blazer. And half the room cheered. I paced the kitchen, rage clawing at my chest. "And the other half?" They looked scared. "Which means they're reachable, but we'll need evidence stronger than anything she can spin." The evidence came the next day, though not the way I expected. At dawn, I heard tires crunch outside. I peeked out to see Brandon, the same wannabe cop Arya had disarmed, stumbling up our driveway. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt untucked. He clutched a flash drive like it was burning his palm. "Please," he begged when Arya opened the door. "I can't do this anymore." "She's using me. She's using all of us. Take it." He shoved the drive into her hand, then bolted down the street before we could ask a single question. Arya plugged it into her laptop, and my stomach flipped as files loaded. Spreadsheets, payments, names. Beverly had been funneling HOA dues into Lake Haven Protective Services, then cutting side checks to her patrol recruits. Brandon, Caleb, Rick, even a few neighbors I recognized names I'd waved to while mowing my lawn. She'd been paying them to spy on us, to file fake complaints, to testify against me, but the worst file was labeled Ops Priority. Inside, dossiers on military families across Florida, deployment schedules, spouse routines, security clearance levels. My throat closed. Where the hell did she get this? Arya's face was stone. That's classified information, which means she's plugged into something bigger than local corruption. Someone's feeding her data. Before I could process, Aria's phone buzzed. Not her normal phone, the sleek black one I'd never seen until she pulled it from a hidden pocket. She answered without hesitation. "Murphy," she said, voice clipped. She paced the room, listening more than speaking, nodding occasionally. Then she hung up and looked at me. "They're pulling the plug," she said. "Who's they?" I demanded. "My command," she said simply. "This isn't just HOA fraud anymore. This is counterintelligence. And now it's official." My chest tightened. "You mean you're still active duty?" She met my eyes. For once, there was no mask, no half-truth, just raw honesty. Yes, the room spun. My wife, the woman I thought taught yoga to stressed-out executives, was still military, still on mission, and I'd been living in her cover story. Before I could find words, she leaned close. "Ethan, listen to me. Beverly isn't just greedy. She's connected to people who want military intel, and they've been using HOAs like this one as cover. That's why we moved here. I didn't tell you because secrecy protects us both. But now it's out." I dropped into a chair, head in my hands. My life, my marriage, my neighborhood, all a stage in some operation I hadn't even known I was part of. Aria crouched beside me, hand firm on my shoulder. "I know it feels like betrayal, but everything I did to keep you safe. And now I need your help. This community needs your help, because Beverly won't stop until she's either exposed or until we're gone." That night, the war hit our doorstep. At 2:03 a.m., our alarms screamed. I bolted upright as security cameras lit the screens. 3 figures in dark clothing moving in formation, approaching from different angles. Not Brandon, not Caleb. These men moved with precision. Aria was already out of bed, pulling open the hidden case from our dresser. She handed me the phone. "Safe room. Call 911. Don't come out until I say your name." Safe room? I didn't even know we had one. But before I could question, she was gone, moving through the house with terrifying calm. The first intruder came through the back door. I heard the crash, the scuffle, the dull thud of a body hitting tile. 15 seconds later, silence. The second made it to the living room. I heard furniture crash, glass shatter, a grunt cut short. The third didn't even make it inside. By the time police sirens wailed in the distance, Aria had them all zip-tied on our lawn, their weapons disassembled neatly beside them. Sheriff Gaines arrived, backup close behind. He stared at the scene, 3 armed men neutralized by a barefoot woman in leggings, and shook his head slowly. "Ma'am," he said finally, "do you want to tell me who you really are?" Aria met his gaze. "All you need to know is that I'm not your problem. But those men, they're part of something bigger than you think. Call federal." And for the first time, I saw it in Gaines's eyes. Recognition. Not surprise. Recognition. He knew the type. He'd seen it before, maybe in uniform, maybe in a briefing. He gave a slow nod, and within the hour, unmarked federal vehicles were swarming our street. Neighbors gathered in pajamas, phones recording, whispers flying. Some looked at us like heroes. Others like criminals. Beverly? She was nowhere to be seen. As dawn painted the sky, I realized one thing with brutal clarity. The war for Lake Haven Ridge had just gone public. And Beverly, our polished HOA president with the perfect smile, was about to learn what it meant to fight someone who didn't just play defense. By sunrise, Lake Haven Ridge no longer felt like a neighborhood. It felt like a crime scene. Yellow tape crisscrossed driveways, police cruisers lined the street, and unmarked black SUVs idled with men in suits stepping in and out, murmuring into earpieces. Our cul-de-sac, usually buzzing with sprinklers and morning joggers, looked like the staging ground for a federal sting. I watched from our porch, half awake, half numb, trying to process the sight of 3 intruders still zip-tied on the lawn. Their eyes were hollow, their silence unnerving. These weren't random thugs. They were professionals who'd been outmaneuvered by my wife in less than 10 minutes. And the longer I stared at them, the more one thought chewed at me. If they were pros, who the hell was backing Beverly? Aria was already at the center of it, speaking calmly with a federal agent in a dark gray suit. The badge flashed when he moved, but his name never did. He listened more than he spoke, nodding at her measured answers. Occasionally, he jotted something in a notebook. No theatrics, just quiet precision. When the sheriff approached me, his expression was different than the night before. No pity, no hesitation, just respect mixed with exhaustion. "Mr. Cole," he said, voice low, "your wife saved more than your house last night. I don't know how much she's told you, but this goes beyond county jurisdiction." I swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" He looked toward Aria, then back at me. Now it's war and paperwork. And that's a war Beverly's not equipped to win." For the first time in days, I almost believed him. The federal debrief took hours. Agents carted away the intruders, their weapons, even the shards of glass from our living room floor. Neighbors whispered behind phones, live streams popped up online, and hashtags started trending before lunch. Hode error, Frash a Lake Haven raid, Bosch Delta Force wife somewhere. Someone had already uploaded grainy footage of Aria dismantling one of the attackers on our lawn. It spread like wildfire. Suburban myth turned viral reality. The comments were a mix of awe, disbelief, and conspiracy theories. "She's CIA. No, Black Ops. Look at that takedown straight military training. My HOA can barely handle landscaping. These guys are out here running paramilitary scams." By noon, Beverly resurfaced. She pulled up in her pristine Lexus SUV, makeup flawless, smile polished like nothing had happened. But there was a twitch in her jaw, a tremor in her step. The predator mask was cracking. She walked straight past the officers, ignoring tape and warnings, marching toward our porch like she still owned the street. Her voice carried, loud enough for phones to capture. "This circus ends now," she declared, pointing at me. "These two have poisoned our community with lies and paranoia. They've brought federal agents into our homes, endangered our children, and undermined legitimate safety efforts. I demand their removal immediately," neighbors gasped. Some nodded nervously, others looked away. But Aria stepped forward, calm as ever, holding a single sheet of paper. "Actually," she said, her voice cutting like glass, "it's your removal we'll be discussing." She handed the paper to Gaines. He scanned it, then read aloud for the crowd. "By order of the state attorney's office, effective immediately, Beverly Concade is suspended from all HOA duties pending investigation into fraud, conspiracy, and misuse of funds." The sound was seismic. Gasps, whispers, phones exploding with pings. Beverly's face drained of color, then flushed deep red. She sputtered, "This is outrageous! Fabricated! I've done nothing but serve—" "Save it for court," Gaines said flatly, pocketing the order. For the first time since this nightmare began, the power dynamic flipped. The Queen of Lake Haven Ridge stood powerless on her own curb, eyes darting like a cornered animal. But Beverly wasn't finished. That evening, while federal agents processed evidence, she gathered her loyalists in the clubhouse. Roughly 20 residents showed up, most of them older, frightened, desperate for stability. Beverly played them like a maestro of fear. I didn't attend, I couldn't, not with the restraining order still in effect. But Aria had ears in the room. Brandon, guilt heavy on his shoulders, recorded the whole meeting on his phone. The playback was chilling, Beverly pacing at the front, her voice a mix of silk and venom. "They want to take our homes. They want to strip us of our rights. Do you think it's coincidence they moved here? Do you think it's coincidence military families keep ending up under attack in neighborhoods like ours? We're being infiltrated, and if we don't act now, we'll lose everything." Her words whipped the room into a frenzy. Some residents shouted about forming patrols, others demanded armed watches. Fear spread faster than truth. But then a voice interrupted. Jane Morgan, the paralegal who'd once been Beverly's ally. "Show us the books," Jane said firmly. "If you've got nothing to hide, prove it." "Where's the money gone?" Beverly froze, then forced a laugh. "Accounting will be handled in due time." The room shifted. Doubt cracked her facade, and in that tiny fissure, truth began to seep. The next week unfolded like a chess match. Federal agents traced Beverly's shell company, Lake Haven Protective Services, back through a maze of LLCs that dead-ended in Delaware. But one slip exposed it all, a payment trail leading to her sister's real estate firm. That firm had bought out foreclosed military family homes in 3 Florida communities, each sale preceded by safety incidents, orchestrated by Beverly's security theatrics. It was a pattern, and patterns are fatal in investigations. Meanwhile, Arya worked the neighborhood like a strategist, rebuilding morale after battle. She didn't lecture. She didn't grandstand. She listened. To Mrs. Patterson's trembling fears about being alone, to the Martinez family's anger about wasted dues, to the younger parents who just wanted their kids safe. Slowly, methodically, she flipped the narrative. "She's not the enemy," Mrs. Patterson whispered one afternoon, tears in her eyes. "She's the only reason I'm still here." It spread. Quietly at first, then louder. One by one, the tide shifted. The trial came faster than anyone expected. Federal prosecutors moved swiftly, armed with evidence Arya and Brandon had collected. Courtroom sketches splashed across headlines. Beverly in her immaculate suit, lips pressed tight, eyes blazing with defiance. The charges read like a novel: wire fraud, conspiracy, intimidation, illegal surveillance, and, most damning, providing sensitive information on military families to unauthorized third parties. The defense tried to spin it, claimed Beverly was a patriot, that she'd been misled by bad contractors, that Arya had entrapped her. But the jury saw through it. The flash drives, the bank records, the photos labeled priority target. They painted a story no amount of polish could erase. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, the air in that courtroom felt electric. Beverly slumped for the first time, her mask shattering. 15 years, no parole. The Queen of Lake Haven Ridge was dethroned by the very people she once ruled through fear. After the storm came rebuilding. Bob Martinez was elected as the new HOA president. Transparent, humble, everything Beverly wasn't. Within weeks, financial records were posted online, meetings streamed for anyone to see. A single rule replaced pages of bylaws: serve the community, not ourselves. Danny Stone, haunted by his part in the chaos, chose redemption. He completed 2 years of community service with veterans organizations, counseling men vulnerable to the same recruitment tactics that had ensnared him. His turnaround shocked everyone, but it proved something powerful. Even tools of tyranny can be reshaped into shields for others. And Arya? She finally shed the last layers of secrecy. She didn't reveal everything. She never could, but enough. Enough for neighbors to see her not as a stranger, but as the shield they never knew they had. She started teaching weekly self-defense classes at the community center. Parents sent their kids. Seniors attended too. Every block learned to stand a little taller. Not through fear, but through strength. 1 year later, Lake Haven Ridge was unrecognizable. The old clubhouse, once Beverly's throne, had been remodeled into a memorial hall. On the front wall, etched into bronze, a plaque read, "In recognition of those who protect and those who refuse to be divided by fear." Every visitor saw it. Every child asked about it. And every parent told the story, our story, not as tragedy, but as a reminder of resilience. Arya never bragged, never sought credit. But when the Department of Defense quietly awarded her the Exceptional Civilian Service Medal, the neighborhood threw a celebration anyway. Balloons, flags, laughter echoing down streets once filled with suspicion. I stood beside her, hand in hers, realizing how much had changed, how much we'd endured, how much we'd built. And when new families moved in, curious about the whispers of the HOA that fought back, we told them the truth. Not every detail, not every scar, but enough. We told them fear can divide, but courage unites. And sometimes the fiercest battles aren't fought overseas. They're fought right here, in cul-de-sacs and community centers, where ordinary people refuse to be bullied, refuse to be silenced, and refuse to let darkness take root.